Hello, Fuel Milwaukee. We are live. Come in the room. Come on, come on, come on. How are you? Welcome to Fuel Milwaukee's webinar on mindful leadership in times of change and uncertainty. I am so excited for this conversation. Somebody's already raising their hands. You guys have questions already. So listen, this is how we're going to do this. We have two amazing panelists. A pretty decent moderator, I mean, I have to say. And we have a bunch of you registered, probably about, I think we're at 250 right now. So in the chat, you're able to talk to each other, share resources, respond to things that you're hearing, give feedback, talk to each other. If you have questions that are directly for one of the panelists or both, or me, or anybody else in this space, go to the Q&A section, which is also open. Now, if you're willing to come on camera and ask your question, just state that when you post the question, and then I'll just elevate you and bring you on screen, and we'll work out your questions together as a group. So remember, when you post your question, if you want to come on screen, say so, and then that'll prompt me to look for you and bring you on screen, okay? So without further ado, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so you guys can see the beautiful panelists. Let me go to, yeah, there we go. I'm gonna go to my gallery view so you can see all of us. All of you have your own controls in Zoom, so by now you're probably all Zoom experts, but if you've been using a different platform other than Zoom, in the upper right-hand corner, you can control the way that you see this webinar and the way that you see all of our screens. For those who don't know, that's a good question. I see it. If you're a nonprofit, raise your hand, or post if you have a need for funds and resources. People are already raising their hands. I love the interaction of these. We can't touch you, but we're still touching you. We're still connected. I'm Corey Joe. If you don't know me, I'm the executive director of Fuel Milwaukee. I have two amazing panelists. Actually, I think I will show my screen again because I have a pretty cool slide where you can see their beautiful faces. Here we go. My Christines. So people who know me know that I refer to them as the Christines. They have both recently found this out in the last couple of days. I refer to them as a group, the Christines. Christine Hill. A lot of you will know her from Future Milwaukee and so many other leadership positions she's been in. I know her as...
I can't wait.
I was gonna say spicy sassy, but really easily one of my favorite speakers, coaches, just keeps it real. Tells it like it is, and it's just easy to talk to. I mean, I might not get what I want to hear, but I want to hear it anyway from her. Come, call her, Christine, will you fuss at me about something? So that's Christine Hill. You all will feel the same way about her. Hi, Christine.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's so good to see your face.
Likewise.
Your hair looks good. Are you cutting your own hair?
Yeah, this is, I'm telling you, the woman who cuts my hair is not going to like this because I'm actually getting better. You know?
It looks so good. Our other Christine is Christine Mcmahon, who's the founder of Mcmahon and Associates. I remember the first couple of times we had conversations about Fuel when we were kind of moving into the professional development bucket, because Fuel for a long time hadn't ever done professional development, and I had the idea to do boot camp, and I'm like, I don't know where to start. Christine, you were the first person I called to get advice about that, and I still have the email and the kind of brief outline you gave me. I used it for 4 years. It helped guide me for 4 years, and you've been helping guide me and many others ever since, and for a long time. So thank you for being here.
Corey Joe, I love you, and I love the Fuel group, and I just feel honored. And Christine and I had an opportunity to connect a little bit earlier today so that we had a sense of each other, and I'm just so excited, and we're going to rock this.
Let's just put it this way. Christine is a strong, sassy name, a strong, sassy woman. And I just got that confirmed earlier.
Yes,
So
yes. Mhm.
watch out.
I knew what I was getting into with the Christines, and all of the registrants I'm going to soon find out. Christine, very cool, Mcmahon, very cool background there. Spacey, baby.
Thank you. I'm a little airy-fairy today, so I thought I'd choose the space one.
Yeah, yep, I love it. So first, before we get into our conversation, I would love to check in with both of you and kind of see how you've been doing since we've been in quarantine, sort of observations, how you're feeling, anything you want to share. Christine Hill, we'll start with you.
Thank you. How am I feeling? Well, I'm feeling very, very privileged and very grateful that I can sit here and tell you that, you know, I have Social Security, I've got Medicare, there is something to be getting older. And I'm in a safe space and able to talk to my kids, can't hug them. I have my grandchildren, and to some, you know, individuals like you, Corey Jo, who I really care about. But having said all that, there are times that my husband and I wish for a bigger space. There are times when I wonder whether or not I am actually managing my amygdala. And it's hard to know that there are people in this community and in my own personal community that are struggling with a lot of different, whether it's mental health or whatever the circumstances are. So pretty much I'm human and feel pretty good, but cautiously.
Yeah. How about you, Christine M?
I'm happy. I'm grateful. My waistline is thicker. My bank account is lighter. We have an uncertain future that nobody really knows what's going to happen when we reopen, and I don't know how I feel about reopening. I'm excited and thrilled on one respect, and I don't know what the consequences are going to be on the other. I've been fortunate to have time to spend with my daughter, who's 21, and she's been home, and I love her to pieces. So we've been soaking up that time that we've had together. But it's a really bumpy time for many people, and that makes my heart sad. So I think I've probably just described the whole gambit of emotions that, you know, you go from this side to this side, and the key is to stay centered and keep it real.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to have this conversation, because we've been doing a lot of different webinars. And Christine Hill, I think I shared with you, initially I thought Fuel's approach would be, oh, we'll just do some professional development stuff. And this was the day before quarantine started.
Right.
I knew we would go to an online platform, but I wasn't exactly sure what to do. But I saw very quickly that there was an appetite for information, and there's the fear and anxiety that comes with uncertainty. You know, that's normal. Mm-hmm. And the escapism that I think a lot of folks thought people would want, and maybe other platforms are where they go for it, but it's not here. I mean, people have been wanting to have really real conversations and get tools that they can use to sort of navigate through this, so they come on the other side, you know, as successful and as positive as possible. So thank you both for doing this. And I knew that you two were the ones that I wanted to have for the conversation. Mm-hmm. So before we move into it, I'll ask both of you, tell everyone that is listening a little bit about your background. So a little bit about your career and the work that you've done as related to the mind and brain science and mindset and all of that.
Christine, you go first.
I was just going to give it to you, but here we go. Okay, so born and raised in Boston, worked for 3 Fortune 50 companies, Procter & Gamble, Slim Fast Foods, Nabisco Biscuit Company. Nabisco moved me here to Milwaukee. I fell in love with the people here. I fell in love with the quality of life. So I quit my job to stay here without a job. Started my business 25 years ago in March, and there's 3 areas that I focus on. I focus on culture, I focus on leadership, and I focus on sales. And you can't grow sales unless you have the other 2, and I've learned that. And I basically do three things. Consulting work and helping companies align their organizations. And when you align them and people are working together, effectively teaming and communicating, it builds speed within an organization. And that speed turns into profitability. It also turns into a very strategic competitive edge. And in today's world, we all need that edge. So consulting is one piece, and I also do coaching, executive coaching, and all the way down to the manufacturing floor. It doesn't matter to me. And finally, sales. So sales coaching and development and that type of work. And I've been really blessed to have fantastic, amazing leaders to be able to work with in this market. For a long time in my business, was national, but I really love the culture here in Wisconsin. So a lot of my companies that I work with are really headquartered here. So it's been quite a blessing.
It's wonderful. The other Christine.
Oh boy. Okay, so I'll just get, well, you know, I'm proud to say that I'm in my 70th year, and you know, you add a few years and then you've got more context to deal with. Probably what's important to know about me, you can get online. So if you want to go to LinkedIn, you want to become what is it, LinkedIn? No, it's friends. What do they call LinkedIn?
Connection.
Oh, yeah, right. Leave it to me. Yeah, thank you for not saying, okay, boomer. I really would rather tell you I have just an extraordinarily wonderful family, 5 kids, 2 stepsons and 3 daughters. And I think they've probably taught me more than anybody. But in addition to that, I think it's the difficult things in life that you won't read on LinkedIn that have informed my attitude about what's important, which is what we're going to talk about. And the core of that, I would say, is the answer to that is really it's the only thing you can control yourself. So leave it there. Check LinkedIn.
And the rest will unfold as we talk.
Yep.
So back to the centering thought around this discussion. Again, I've been sort of scrolling Facebook, reading emails from our members, looking at other webinars, having conversations with my friends, and it just really occurred to me that it would be beneficial for us all to have a conversation about our minds and our thoughts and our ability to reframe and manage the information that we're all taking in,
Right.
and use it to propel us into something greater. So after having, 2 conversations with you all separately, the idea for this webinar sort of came about, and really, all of us are in the position to lead in a completely different way. And we're processing completely different information. I mean, I've never been, my kids, I think this is normal. I think they think quarantine is a thing that happens like a snow day. And I do. I think they just are like, okay, this is a part of life. And for me, it's been really managing the shock of it, because, we know that this is not just a snow day, and all the other information that we're keeping away from our kids are things that we're processing. And, I just thought we should just have a conversation about it and how all of us are managing our mind. So Christine, you taught a workshop for Fuels Bootcamp on mindfulness. And I remember that session and not knowing exactly what mindfulness was. And I was kind of reading about it and reading quotes like this, mindfulness is a way of befriending ourselves and our experience. And there's lots of different quotes, but there's something elusive about mindfulness until you really get it. So in your own words, how do you describe it? How do you explain it to people? And how is it beneficial to people in leadership roles and life in general?
So the easy answer is that mindfulness is really about awareness of yourself, awareness of your environment, and sort of that consciousness. And the example I would give, and the one that I've actually experienced a lot more lately because we're quarantined, is it's sort of the feeling when you've been online and you've been in your computer, or you've been playing some game like, I don't know, Candy Crush. And you've been playing and playing and playing, and all of a sudden you decide, I think I'll go out, in my case, on the balcony. It looks like a beautiful day. But that's all intellectual. That's all sort of up here, my cognitive. And I go out and I think, whoa, this feels different. This feels like, and I, just looking around at the environment, and there's this sudden awareness that I was lost in a rabbit hole, as we were saying earlier. It's that awareness that I am part of something and influenced by something and influence something much larger than myself. And that presence, I think, now I want to just a little bit of a tweak, and that is this. If somebody has led you to believe that mindfulness is about levitation off of a round little pillow, or it has something to do with now you're going to sit and you're just going to, monkey brain, all that, that is not what it is. It can be as simple as my saying to myself, ooh, I'm feeling a little nervous right now because I can't see anybody, and there's over 100 people out there, and being suddenly aware that anxiety may be unhelpful to me as I'm having this conversation. Do you want me to talk a little bit about the brain, Corey, Joe?
Yes,
For anybody that went through Future Milwaukee with me, this will be boring. But essentially, what I just described to you, if I'm not aware of what's going on inside of me, and if I'm not aware, or at least to the extent that resources will allow you, if I'm not aware of where those aspects of myself come from, my history, if I'm not aware of those things, and I am simply going through life, doing what I do, forget that my behavior is maybe not particularly helpful, autopilot is a way of thinking about it, then I'm not being mindful. What really regulates whether or not you can be mindful is an awareness, and this is a human condition that every single human has. All of us are born. And all of us, when we come into this world, have a body and, some would say spirituality, but there's information coming into us that's so critical to our development when we're very, very young. And so things that occur around us or to us or within us influence how it is our brain functions, how our neurological speedways function. And if I'm not aware, there's this thing called an amygdala. I usually say, put your hand back here, somewhere in the back there. If you're not aware that patterns of behavior, fears, all manner of ways of being in the world, if you're not aware of your own, recognizing and owning the fact that you're the only one that can control it, you are at risk of behaving in ways that might have been really helpful when you were little, when survival was the, sort of necessary element. But now in working with people, adults, and I use the term loosely, my belief is that adults are actually children who have enlarged and who oftentimes still carry the pain or the fears or the behaviors of what we lived with. And that's because of the neurological process. So your amygdala, get to know it. I mean, part of the mindfulness process is get to know what it is that controls you. Get to know before you go out and talk to anyone else. Get to understanding yourself and your own biology. That's a very, very crude way of describing Corey Joe. And my neurological friend here is probably better suited for that question. But does that help at all, Corey Joe?
It does. It does. Christine McMahon, I'll actually, I have a question for you about mindset, but I would like for you to respond to what Christine Hill has said about mindfulness. Any thoughts you can share?
So I think mindfulness is about, and I'm going to ditto several things that you said, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being consciously aware of where we are in any given moment. It's about being aware of how we are emotionally feeling, what's getting triggered or not getting triggered, how centered are we in our sense of being within ourselves to be present for ourselves. I mean, these are unprecedented times. I know I've been jarred on many different occasions along this journey, and how do you breathe into that, recognize that you're having a human experience in that moment,
Right.
Lean into it, but at the same time, not allow it to become so big that it takes over you, you become overwhelmed by it. I mean, I think part of the biggest challenge of this experience that we're all having is it's so fear driven.
Yep.
And if you think about it, so much of our personal liberties, we don't have them anymore in this experience.
Right.
So for us to operate in a world where we haven't had them here in America, we've always had our personal liberties. We could go and take our bike and go bike riding. We could walk into a grocery store and not have to be 6 feet away. Or when we're checking out, we have to now be 6 feet away and there's lines and you can't cross them. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we've not experienced before. It is difficult not to get triggered. It's difficult. I know, at least for me, I want to be in control of my life. I have a lot of self-confidence. I believe I can make smart decisions. But in this environment, there's so many unknowns. What is it that we're able to control? Other than, Christine, to your point, being aware of how we're feeling, right, honoring it, right, being present for it, but at the same time, not being compromised, right, by it so that we can't show up in the world in a way that we need to for ourselves and our family and our loved ones.
Well, Christine, I would echo that. And I would say the one thing I worry about, particularly when we're talking on a topic like this, is that what we're describing, I would say, Corey, Joe, and Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're describing, this act of self-awareness and mindfulness, mm-hmm, frankly, takes courage. Mm-hmm. It is tough. And when you're compromised, like you've just described, Christine, that, virtually everyone is, it is even more difficult, but more compelling of a reason, mm-hmm, that if you can, and if you have the resources to be able to slow yourself down and to be able to take care of yourself, whatever that means, mm-hmm, I think in terms of leadership, that is an act of leadership. Even if you don't go any further outside of yourself, being able to recognize that, slow yourself down, and really understand how hard this is. So I don't want to sound like, oh, well, this is easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I just wanted to show that I knew how to do that. But that's why it is an act of leadership, because it is being vulnerable and doing what Christine just described, requires that of us. Mm-hmm. So don't be too hard on yourself.
Christine, you shared this. You actually gave me this book on mindset, and I've been reading it and kind of going through it and pushing myself to reframe information and look at things from a light that is going to serve me probably more than freaking out or being upset about things. Talk to me a little bit about that book and how mindset is related to mindfulness, especially in the context of leadership in these times.
It's a really big question. I'll do my best. So for everybody to see it, I don't know. Oh, actually, you can't see it. I have the book. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so sorry. That was a failed experiment.
Come back down to earth, Christine.
Yeah, seriously. So the book is called Mindset, and the author is Carol Dweck. It's D-W-E-C-K. And as a consultant, as a coach, especially as a trainer, it is a book that I wished I had read 20 years ago, because she has taken a pretty large subject. And thank you so much, Corey, you're the best. She's taken a very large subject and through research has been able to make it really simple for us. And in the book, what she describes is that we have two different mindsets. The first is a fixed mindset, F-I-X-E-D, fixed mindset. And people with that orientation as a primary orientation, they tend to be perfectionists, and the process of learning can be intimidating for them because their personal identity is attached to the result and the outcome. And we all know that when we're learning something, we're not going to do it all perfect and right the first time. There's going to be some bumps. An individual with a fixed mindset doesn't have the emotional flexibility to be able to accept that without punishing themselves, without feeling that they are incompetent, unworthy, and it's very difficult for them to be learners in that way. Then we also have the growth mindset, which is a bit of the opposite of that. And the growth mindset are individuals who do not personalize the learning process, but rather lean into and embrace it and have enough confidence that they're just going to figure it out. And when situations do not turn out as they intended, it's not internalized as a personal failure, but rather simply as feedback that says, that didn't work. I guess I have to try something else. That didn't work. I guess we should do plan D. We've done A, B, C, D. Maybe E is actually going to be the big one. And they get excited about learning. They get excited about potentiality. They get excited about the possibilities. And while their focus is on achieving a result, because there's a drive toward that, what happens is they're so excited about the learning process, they typically achieve the result. And when it doesn't happen the way they planned, they just move on. They learn and they move on. Now, we need to be mindful that all of us have both. It just depends upon which topic has some of the fixed and which topics and areas of us are really growth minded. So for example, you could be an outstanding leader who loves to learn and gets really excited about that. And while you might have always wanted to be an artist at some level, your fixed mindset says, you're never going to be successful at that. Do you remember in 5th grade when you did that beautiful portrait and the teacher came back to you and you thought it was an A and she gave you a C+ and you were devastated? You're never going to do that. So within us, we have these parts. And I think it's important that we're able to identify them. We have some language around that so we can categorize it. And importantly, how do we manage through that? Because just because we feel that way doesn't mean we have to stay that way. It means that if we become conscious of it, Christine, as you talked about, we become conscious of it, how do we lean in and we say, yeah, we are a little afraid about that, but just take the next step. And then just take the next step. See how
Christine,
you feel about
can I ask you a question? Is that all right, Corey?
Please.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
My assumption, or at least my experience, is that part of what gets you to whichever mindset, to whatever extent on either side, is grounded in that early childhood development, the messages you received as a kid, often the experiences that you had. And if you grew up in a family where, to use the example that you did, where what you heard was you can't accomplish these things, you can't do this, or you don't have control, or whatever it is, that your mindset, in a sense, may grow out of that. And that as a leader, from my perspective, and I'd be interested to know if either one of you have the thought on this, it would seem to me that the responsibility of someone who refers to themselves as a leader is that they take a hard look at what their mindset is, honor themselves by understanding it, but then making a commitment to be accountable to it and do what is necessary to alter that. And if mindfulness is one way that you can alter that, great. But that it's that essentially owning the entire process of your life, not putting judgment necessarily upon yourself, but just seeing how all of these things that you've lived have influenced you in having whichever mindset you're experiencing in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Or am I just having such a good time talking from my second?
No, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, because I put in the chat, and if those listening can respond to the question, I'm just wondering what people's, like, what this conversation is sparking for you. Like, what are your concerns as leaders for those who are listening? What are you, I mean, I think about, events, and the whole premise of Fuel is, before this time, was face to face, going to places together, experiencing Milwaukee together. And I wonder what success is going to look like in my world now going forward if I can't bring people together in spaces in the same way. And then even just managing people and teams who are, afraid of the physical space around them, and whether or not it's going to make them sick. And how do I help people manage their own feelings about this pandemic and how it's had an impact on their lives? Different varying responses that people have based on their current mindset and opportunities to grow. How do we push them to grow? I mean, I have so many questions.
We have a chapter 2 coming. I have a few.
Yeah.
If I can jump in, Christine, if it's okay, just a real quick question. You can't manage other people. That's my bottom line. What you can manage is your delivery, your own internal process, as Christine was talking about before, but you can't manage other people. It's what you present of yourself. If it's your best self, if it's your compromised self, whatever it is, that act of mindfulness about how you're presenting yourself, and then understanding that the person on the other end has their own history, their own amygdalas, their own everything, and then recognizing how you need to adjust in order to really to work with that individual. Now I'll come back.
So can I dovetail on what you just shared based upon some of the questions that are being asked here?
Yeah.
So we have volatility, we have uncertainty, we have ambiguity, we have anxiety. And I'm just going to share with you some of the things that some of my best clients have been doing. So my best clients, immediately when this happened, they did a risk assessment to understand what is the best that can happen, what's the worst that can happen, and what's likely to happen. And I would just share with you, it's a philosophy that I've embraced for almost all of my adult life, is I always look at, in every situation, what is the best that can happen, what is the worst, and what is likely, simply because I have to be prepared as a leader to accept the worst, because I need to be prepared to lead through that. And I need to be able to support people through that. So I think the first thing that we need to look at as leaders are, what are those three components for you, recognizing that you're operating somewhat blind. We don't have all of the facts and the information. What we have are information points. We have fact points that we bring into consideration when we're looking at possibilities. Okay, that's the first piece. The second piece is communication. I think, as you talked about, Christine, we have to be mindful of how we show up as leaders. And the most important thing that people need is communication. Mm-hmm. Tell me the truth. Even if you don't know what's going to happen, even if you don't know what the next step is, at least let me know that. So one of the things the CEOs that I've worked with is we've created that every Friday they send out either a YouTube video, a memo to all employees of the company saying, here's where we're at. Here's what I know. Here's what's happening in our business right now. And here's what I anticipate the plan to be as we move forward. If something changes with this, I'm going to let you know as soon as possible. But here's what business as unusual looks like for us right now. Because there are several things we cannot control. We don't know in our plants when a COVID case is going to happen and what that's going to do to production. We don't know when, XYZ happens. So we have to be mindful that there are going to be stress points that are going to cause us, but when we have a plan to anticipate what can happen there, then we're going to execute the plan. So again, that best, worst, and likely scenario, there are plans that you develop that you are mindful of, and that the whole team, the leadership team, understands what's everybody's role in this. So, that's an element. I think communication, and I think it's important that you be real. In this environment, everything is fine. Everything is going to go back to normal. Everything is gonna, that's not real. People know that the likelihood of that happening may not happen. So you need to share it. Now, I also want to say, based upon a few things that folks are writing here, it's okay as a leader for you to show up and say, I don't have all the answers and I don't know. And I want you to know there's a part of me that's anticipating a positive future, but at the same time, it's scary. And I'm a little scared. And I want us as a team to be communicating and touching base with each other. And as a leader, one of the most important things that you can do is you need to be asking your immediate leadership team, and depending upon how much bandwidth you have, even deeper than that, how are you today? How are you today? What's happening in your world? Because these are the leaders that you need to depend upon, that you are going to work with as we move through this crisis. And each one of them are going to have moments that they're too going to get triggered. And it may not be the ones that are expected. It's going to get triggered by something that happened. And as a leader, you need to be taking the temperature of the group. And when you ask them, how are you? That is a human connection. It's not about the business right now. It's about you. And I'm here for you. And I think as a leader, it's really critical that you have some sort of support group that, or support person who you can talk with to think out loud. I'm going to share with you, the higher you are in an organization, the lonelier it is. And people are going to expecting you to lead them. But you're leading them to a place that's an unknown. It's a possibility, but we don't know exactly where we're going. And so that uncertainty, to the best of your ability, it needs to be honored. But at the same time, you need to keep it controlled and help people to focus on what is within their control today. Because that moves it. Yeah, Christine, I'll turn it over to you. And just
No.
that moves it
Boy,
from
that was good.
the fear. Well, I can hear you thinking, so, and it's a good place for you to kick in. It moves it from the critter brain getting triggered in terms of that fear, and it helps them to be thoughtful. People, this is a situation where we don't feel we're in control. If you think about it, what is this situation created? It makes us feel like we're not in control of our lives, or potentially in a month or two, we might not be. I don't think that I'm going to be different from many of you. I've lived through 9/11. I've lived through the recession. But I'm going to tell you, I have no idea what's going to exist on the other side of this for me. And I already sat down with my daughter and said, I may have to get a job after 25 years of being in this business. I might have to go back to corporate America. And we started talking. I have a friend who's going to be the general manager of a car dealership, and they have GMC cars. I'd be really good at that because I love cars and I could sell them, so this is part of the worst that can happen, is having a plan with different options and getting comfortable and saying, what are we going to do? And develop those plans now, knowing you may have to adjust them, and hopefully somewhere between what's likely to happen and the best that can happen, we're going to end up there. But at least you will not lose yourself if the worst has to happen, because you have a plan. And it's big, but that's what leadership is. Leadership is having the courage to do what other people don't want to do, can't do, are unable to do. That's leadership. And it's bringing all the right people into the conversation, because you need all of those perspectives. You need to not have blind spots. You need people with different thought patterns to challenge what might be triggered from you as a fear, to break it up and look at possibilities. So I would say it's a team deal. You're not alone. Connect to people, keep it real, and do your best to communicate in a very regular basis so that you create predictability within your organization. We're experiencing chaos to some degree. So if you can be predictable and people can anticipate that you're going to be there, that gives them a sense of comfort, and it keeps them in the thinking brain, not in the fear-based brain. So
We have a guest.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, Corey Joe.
Okay, Kim, so tell everybody where you work and what you are doing, and what your management dilemmas are right now.
Sure. So I had to warn my college-age son, who had snuck through earlier, that I'm going to be on camera suddenly. So, now is not the time. So I work at UWM School of Continuing Education. I am a customized training consultant for them. And Christine Hill and I have met through Marquette University before too. Yeah. So one of the things I had asked through the chat was, and I spelled literally wrong, which cracked me up, although I spelled it really, which I think is kind of a Freudian slip. If you have any kind of event planning responsibility, or you need to look at something where you have to do some kind of short-term planning for something that needs to happen in the next 3 months or the next 6 months, and you're leading a group, what are you supposed to do about this when you really, literally don't know what the future holds? And that's one of my questions, is how do you lead a group through
Right.
something like that?
If I can, Corey Jo?
Yeah.
I would say the
Make
first.
me go on camera, you brat.
Yeah, I love it. I think the first thing, and you know what, I say this so often that I begin to think people think, oh, well, you know, right, whatever. Check in with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. How are you experiencing what you're talking about? How might that influence how you're feeling, might influence how you project what it is? And, you know, planning is great. I agree with Christine. But if you don't first check with yourself, look at your team or look at the people that you're working with and check with them. Do what Christine described as, how are you doing? Understanding that you may have some people that don't want that question asked. They may want to, you know, I'm not comfortable being vulnerable. I'm not comfortable. I need stability. I hate change. On the other hand, there are people who love change, like myself, and they can be creative and they can be, you know, very much emotionally and socially intelligent. That isn't everybody else. So it's really getting clear about yourself and then recognizing that the planning is critical. But before you get into the nuts and bolts of that, really take a look at yourself and your audience to determine what they are going to need or want in order to get in their critical thinking part of their brain. Because otherwise, creativity, critical thinking, all of that goes out the window the minute fear takes over. That's my sermon, as it were.
Amen. Thanks, Kim. So I have a question for you all about
Corey, can I just ask a question while you're thinking about
yeah,
that?
sure.
So in the chat here, someone asked the question, how do you get the team on the same page around the worst case scenario? You have to use your leadership judgment to decide, is that something that is best for them to be involved in, or is that something that you just need to be prepared for? So I don't know your team. I don't know the intimacy of that team and how you work. I don't know their leadership acumen and their competency. So it's difficult for me to say, should you share it with them or not? At an executive level, I think everybody needs to be prepared for that because they need to lead in a certain way. But there's a point in an organization where you don't necessarily want to focus on that. You want to be prepared for it, but you want to be focusing the team on the next thing. So what I would say is, one of the things we should look at is short-term wins, because that gets people out of the fear of potentiality and it builds on success. So you start with, here are the goals that we have today. Let's see how we do against that. Here are the goals that we have for the week. How do we do about that? And you celebrate those wins. And you might be all, you know, at home, but there's still an opportunity to get everybody together on a Zoom and do your high fives and celebrate and build some momentum about the positivity of the things that are happening. You know, I can share with you that Corey Jo shared that, you know, there's someone that she knows who's been now at home in a sales function, making cold calls, having wild success, because that individual wasn't in the office, wasn't self-conscious about people listening to the calls that he was making, and he's having his best month ever. I mean, how cool is that to be able to be looking at that and building on that momentum? So as a leader, we do have to selectively choose what information do you want to share with your team, on what timing, and how do you keep them focused? You know, a big part of this is so that they're not getting triggered into the worry. What is worry? Worry is a false reality that might turn out to be real, but right now it's false, it's an imagined. So let's keep it real in what they can control, because they don't feel in control of their life. So whatever work they're doing, what can they control? Corey Jo is controlling this whole conversation. She's controlling the whole planning. gives
no,
her
she
sense.
just thinks she is.
Well, she does, but she's so good at it. I'd follow her, right? But it's that empowerment, right? How do we help people to feel that sense of empowerment where we can have those wins? So I know there's other questions. I just, when I,
And I just let you guys think you're in control.
I know. Yeah, what?
No, there's a really good, I mean, there's so many questions, so I'm going to try to
Sure.
Corey Joe, is there a way, and I probably shouldn't say this live and in person, but is there a way of getting those questions to us?
Yes, I
Oh,
can. I can export all the questions after this is over. And we've done that on other webinars where we had to answer offline and sort of email everyone. So there's an opportunity for us to answer. Some of them, I think we got like 8 minutes. So
can I add one more thing? Or
yeah.
am I doing a bad thing? Okay, so I just wanted to go back if I didn't do this. There was a question, how do you grieve this journey?
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you using that word, because the life that we've known is not the life that we're living right now, right? The empowerment that we've felt over our lives is different. And I keep using that word because that disempowerment is what's triggering our amygdala to jump in there. So what I would simply say is be present for it, honor it. At the very beginning of this, I'll share with you that I selected 5 people that I said to them at the very beginning, I'm going to be in touch with you every single day. I need to know that you're okay. First of all, because I care about you and I love you. Second of all, we're friends and that's not going to change. And third, we need to be in touch with each other, right? And we need to be able to speak our truths about what's going on. So whatever you're feeling, I want you to know that I am holding this safe space for you to be able to vent, because I know you can't do this with your immediate family. I know that you're living alone. I know that whatever their circumstance are. So it's having this sense of connectivity and caring, a caring environment. And I will tell you, when I get their texts every day, I mean, we go back and forth, it makes my heart happy. So am I scared? There's a part of me that certainly is, because I don't know what's going to happen.
Christine, can I comment on that? I think that's really important. And I'm not disagreeing with you, because I think it is critical that that connection is there. Mm-hmm. I also think, and I have experienced this, that if I'm motivated by taking care of people, this is where mindfulness comes in, to check yourself and say, okay, is it because I believe in order for me to survive, if I'm really honest with myself, I have to be sort of the receptor or the receptionist of a lot of people's fears. And there's a point at which that it's also an act of leadership to say, you know what, I can't take care of all these people. I want to be available, just like you said, to people, particularly given their circumstances. But I also need to be able to say no.
So here's what I would say. I have my 5. I'm not taking care of them. I'm not owning that responsibility.
Right.
It's not my responsibility, but to be present for them,
right,
with them, I absolutely can be.
Yep.
And I think that's the act of love. And I think it's a mutual act of love, because the boundary is, I have enough to take care of myself and my family. I don't know if I can take care of you, but I can be present for you and I can listen to you and I can honor how you're feeling. It's not my job to change how you're feeling unless you invite me into it.
Right. And I think I don't disagree with that at all. I think what my tendency in the past would have been is to feel that I have to take care of a lot of people and not be able to distinguish at what point do these other human beings take care of themselves. And it's sort of like the stewardship burnout kind of thing. Mm-hmm. This is frightening. And you said it earlier, connection is critical.
I have a question that I've been kind of struggling with in terms of boundaries. So I'm realizing, or I felt very early on in quarantine that I feel closer to the people I work with now. And I've been working with a lot of these people for over a decade, but I feel closer to them partly because, I think this shared experience just sort of brings us all together and gives us some common ground to start off our meetings with that is more personal than just about members or accounts or whatever it might be. The other piece is, we're seeing people's homes and their children and their pets and I know that one of my core values and things I really love is community and really feeling close to people and knowing them and knowing what makes them tick and having them know me. So there's something about this that is comforting to me, and I really totally lean into it, but realizing that.
Uh-oh, where did you go?
Yeah, Corey Joe.
Corey Joe! Oh man, we didn't get the realization.
Everyone's level of comfort with me. Can you see? So this question in the Q&A is, okay, so the question is, it's a long question, but the person says that their boss and CEO is working really hard to keep people going financially, right? So with not really addressing the stress that he's not really addressing it. He's not connected to it. That's just not his thing. So the person says the boss is very positive, almost to a fault. And anytime he asks how people are doing, it seems kind of superficial. Mm-hmm. So this person is taking on the role of the emotional labor for the staff. It feels tired, So I think
exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question of boundaries and how much of the new normal, I do think it's going to be different. I think we know more about each other and it's going to be more personal. But that tolerance that everyone is not going to be, I can't expect everyone here to feel the way that I feel about it. Mm-hmm. I have to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. So my first sense, and you brought up a really powerful word, and the word is boundaries. Okay, we have physical boundaries, we have emotional boundaries, we have mental boundaries, and if you're not comfortable with boundaries, there's a phenomenal book called Boundaries, that's what it's called, and I have it here somewhere, but I will get you, it's not right on the top of my thing, but I will get that to you. And what it talks about is when you're being present for people, it doesn't mean you own their stuff. So when you're sitting around the table, understand that the CEO has really big strategic responsibilities right now. He may not have the bandwidth emotionally to take on and understand what people are going through because he may be at his pressure point, right? Which is why I said as a leader, it's really important just to say, how are you today? How are things going? What's happening in your life? So that you can understand. He may not have the capability, but share that. Don't own it. You don't have to fix it. But it's nice to have the safe place where people can check in. And maybe in the morning, you start the mornings with a huddle. And it's a 15-minute huddle. And the team gets in and say, okay, we're gonna spend 2 or 3 minutes going around doing a check-in with everyone. How are you? What's going on with you? What's happening today? Okay, you get that temperature check and say, okay, let's focus on what we're going to accomplish today and how are we going to work together, because that's our choice and we can control that today, right? At the end of the day, you circle back at the end of the day and say, okay, how's everybody doing? Let's do a check-in point. How'd we do today against our goals? Achieving success is, if you think of stairs, right? It's one step at a time. Master the step and then go up to the next step. Master that and go up to the next one. This huddle gives you a series of steps to go up, but you do it as a team. And not everybody is going to show up and say, wow, I feel great today. They're going to say, I feel awful today and I'm grieving. So anyway, sorry. Hi.
Somebody is staring at me.
I love that. Marisha. Is that correct? Or
Marisha.
Marisha, beautiful.
Hi, Marisha.
Hey, Marisha.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. How are you all?
Wonderful. Even better now that you're here.
Oh, thank you.
What's on your mind?
Thank you so much.
I know you've been going through a lot.
Actually, Christine, thanks, Corey Joe. What you just said is a perfect segue to my question, and which was, how do you mindfully support employees who are facing adversity. So if you do that human connection and you check in and your question is, how are you today? And someone is experiencing extreme adversity, what is the mindful way to support that employee through their challenges?
That's a, it's the $42,000, although these days it's more like the $1 million question. I think the first thing, again, I'm going to beat a dead horse here, is to really check in with yourself. And perhaps the thing to do is to really determine what, if any, resources are available. Very practical. I mean, there's a lot of good organizations out there now that, and mental health experts and folks that can provide support. I think it's really determining what's going on with that person. And then maybe offering those resources, or at least leading them to those resources. Beyond that, I think it's everything that Christine was talking about before. I think it's really trying very, very hard to understand and empathize with the individual, even though your life may be entirely different. And to be aware that if you don't know this person, you don't know what they're carrying. All you can do is what Christine said, is to be present without judgment, with the hope that you will offer them something that is helpful to them. We're at a point, I think, Christine, you mentioned something earlier. We are at a point where being human in a way that is undeniably loving is something to be proud of, rather than, let love stuff. We gotta balance the budget. I get you gotta balance the budget. But if we can lead with love in our conversations, if we can lead with love for that person, we're gonna change this community, this world community. But it takes, again, managing those fears, that mindfulness, that need to just pay attention to what's getting going for you and how that's influencing the way you're communicating with that person. That was an extremely long answer to a very insightful question.
That was a great answer.
That was a great answer.
So here's what I'd like to throw out, and you can come back to me and say, that wasn't helpful and that was really stupid, and I'm good with that. Each one of us individually doesn't have all the answers, but collectively, we have power, we have insights. And I don't know if this individual who's going through a really difficult time would be willing to share his or her story. But how powerful would it be if you could get team members together and sit around the table and say, we're just going to talk about today something that's happening to one of our own. And it's a pretty extreme situation that this person is having to face. And the intent of this meeting is not to solve the problem.
Right.
The intent of the meeting is to help this person in this time of trauma be able to have ideas about different paths that could be viable, that could help them. Because when you're experiencing trauma, and believe me, I have been there. I have been there where my brain just did not even function. Forget going to the amygdala. It just stopped. I couldn't think for the life of me. And when you're in that place, you need somebody who can ask questions, can help you to think. Have you considered this? Is this a possibility? Could this be could you look at that? Have you tried this? And just being able to loosen it up and know that there are people here who hear you and also are trying to support you within the resources that they have. So I don't know if that helps, but I just wanted to throw that out to you. Together we're powerful. Individually, we're not as strong, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, there's someone else, and I happen to know who he is.
Maricia, I hope you're doing good. I want to check in with you. later.
Thank you for your
Okay.
question, Marisha.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Look
Mhm.
forward to talking with you, Corey Joe.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Flowers, let me unmute you. Your background.
Hey.
Wait, he's trying to show off his background.
Oh,
Royce, before you ask your question, we are about 5 minutes over time. So if the Christines can stay on for 10 more minutes, we'll just continue.
I'll stay as long as you want, Corey Joe.
Perfect. So the attendees, those of you that have to hop off, go ahead and do so, and know that I'm going to email you all the recording of this, so you can kind of fast forward to the end to see the parts that you missed. But thank you all for being here. Hey, Royce.
Hey, how you doing?
You show off.
If I was trying to show off, I would show my beautiful, what is this?
No.
My gazebo.
What?
Oh my God.
That is not in Milwaukee. Where are you?
If y'all want me to show off, I mean, I can show off.
No. Just get to the question.
Okay. Okay.
No. Get to the question.
Calm me down, because I will show off. Calm me down.
Okay, you got a question about self-talk.
Yeah, I was listening to everything. It was a great discussion, and I know, my network of people that I talked to even before this pandemic started, we focus on self-talk and having those conversations with ourselves, the positive conversations, and keeping the energy and everything positive, and trying to look forward to the future, and designing what we want to happen as opposed to reacting to what happens to us. So I was just wondering, what did you ladies think, or the people who are listening in, what did they think about how important self-talk is during a time like this, when you can find yourself nervous or fearful or scared or anxiety? What would you recommend to people who may not even know about self-talk or haven't, thought about that?
First, I tell them it's not complicated, because I think we tend to make it seem like self-talk requires some sort of therapeutic, expertise. It doesn't. What it requires is for you to figure out how best to communicate with yourself. So let me give you an example. If it's in the morning, I get up, and an act of mindfulness is that I read something, prayer or whatever else, and then reflect on it. How does this influence me? How does this impact me? What does this say to me? That's doing what you just described. If you prefer to go for a quiet walk, wear your mask, please, and you find that quiet walk is a way to have that conversation with yourself. There's no prescribed way of doing it, and you don't have to do it every day. I find that if there's pressure on self-talk, you need to have these conversations. I can hear my therapist. You need to have these conversations with yourself. If there's pressure on there, you're probably not going to get the truth from yourself. That's sort of higher wisdom. So to be able to just kind of be easy with yourself, but find ways to encourage internal communications, even if it's just, I'm writing a sentence in this journal. By the way, just quick sidebar, because I'm turning 70 this year, I decided after retirement, I was going to go back and look through all my journals from like 30, 40 years ago. You want to have a conversation with yourself. Now, you all are too young to have that much journal information. If you want to have a conversation with yourself, write yourself today letters to your future self. Take a look at the things that you've written, if you have, and realize that that's all the same person, that there's wisdom in there that you may not have seen. And there's probably undiscovered wisdom, not in you, young man, not in you. I have a feeling you discovered your wisdom. But that's my suggestion. Be pragmatic about it, but at the same time, open up to the fact that there's information already out there. You just got to find the space, the environment, the opportunity to just be with it so that it surfaces.
Right.
That sounds too esoteric.
No,
Can I
that
add
was
to that?
that was awesome. Christine Hill,
Yes, dear.
can I tell you one thing?
Yes, please.
As usual, you look phenomenal.
Oh,
She rocks.
I mean to tell you. How often can I do this where he publicly shows up in front of 100
I mean, let me just
and
mute
says it?
and take him off screen. Bingo.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
all
he
love-
knows it, doesn't he?
Could I add, Christine, to what you just said, in that I think he brings up such an important point that we hadn't discussed. So I'm really grateful that he did that, because words trigger neurological responses.
Right.
And how we communicate with ourselves
Mm.
either puts us in a place of resourcefulness or
Right.
maybe not, right? And I can share with you personally that this is an unusual time. This is a little scary to be here. But my mantra has been, since I was maybe 20, 25 years old, I will always land on my feet. It doesn't matter what happens. I always land on my feet. Sometimes it's a really bumpy landing. Sometimes I twist my ankle. Sometimes I wish that, oh my gosh, did I really have to take this journey this way? But the bottom line is, my philosophy is I will always land on my feet. And that may look a little different than I want it to look, but I'm always going to be okay. And that's what I tell myself all the time. It doesn't matter what happens, you will always be okay.
You're actually, Christine, speaking to, did you see the comment somebody said, how does this relate to faith?
I must have missed that. No.
Yeah,
No,
that was Tyra.
One of the what I would add to your ad, to my ad, is that we're going back through these journals of my life. The things that I thought were the worst moments, absolutely the worst moments. I from my first kiss to whatever, absolutely the worst moments. I didn't mean that first kiss was the worst moment, but to a teenager, to a kid, that was a very, very sensitive moment. So we're not just talking about leadership in terms of businesses, we're talking about families and the influence of what we're saying in the neighborhood and in the family unit. But it's interesting to me when I go back and I see the threads, and this relates for me to faith. I see that the threads of the things that when I was in the most pain, or when I had the most trauma, or when I lost an election and thought, oh my God, the world's going to end. Thank God I lost the election. Those things now, to your point, whether it's landing on your feet or taking a situation, I have the faith that I'm going to be okay. Even if I don't like the outcome, I'm going to be okay. And the way that I nourish that faith is by constantly reminding myself of the importance of loving myself first. That mindfulness is an act of self-love.
Yes. You've triggered a couple of things that I'd love to share with this group before we have to transition and Corey says, okay, I've had enough now. But Marianne Williamson is probably my very favorite author, and she has written many books. My favorite of her books is Everyday Grace. And I had the privilege of being able to attend a 3-day workshop that she facilitated about 10 years ago that was truly profound for me. And I'm going to share with you the activity that she walked us through during that program. And I am going to say she's very spiritual. She believes in God. So for those who this is not your faith, I'm going to apologize up front. It's not my intent to offend you in any way. I'm simply wanting to share with you an experience that was profound for me. So she asked us to take out a piece of paper, 8.5, 11 piece of paper. And she said, I want you to write a letter to God, and I'm going to give you 7 minutes. You write anything that's on your mind right now, anything that you want to know, whatever it is, I just want you to write a letter to God. So when 7 minutes is up, she said, okay, now I want you to turn the paper over. And what I want you to do is I want you to write the response back from God. And I sat there, and this energy just went through me, and it was so profound. Oh my gosh, yeah, my favorite person, right? So I sat there and I kind of thought about what she said, and I'm a deeply spiritual person. And here's what happened. I put it down there, and I started with Dear Christine, and my hand just wrote, and it filled the page. And it filled the page not necessarily with all the questions that I wrote, but it filled the page with the messages that I needed to hear. And I've never had such an experience that was so simplistic, so easy, non-invasive, didn't need anybody else, didn't need a shaman to come work on my body or tell me what I needed, none of that stuff, right? Here it is, it's all within us. And I left that workshop really feeling that we come here and we are connected to Source, our creator. And if I say to the creator, okay, this is bigger than me and I can't hold all of it right now, I need to give this to you, and here's what I can do. Please, this is the end result of what I want to have happen. Please make that or something better happen. I don't know how, but if you can make the sunrise every morning, and by the way, folks, I've got to tell you, the sunrise today in Milwaukee, it was so spectacular. I'm going to share pictures with you, Corey. You can share it with them. It was the most magnificent, and I thought, today is going to be a magical day. It's going to be magical. I also want to share with you, there's a gentleman named Moji, Mooji on YouTube. And he has this beautiful message. It's about 12 or 14 minutes long. And he talks about the simplest, but I think the most profound meditation I've ever done. And it goes this way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How do you do that? You are magic. Thank you so much, Joe. You didn't even know I was going to do this. Thank you. But thank you. And thank you for this. Thank you for that. And when we are in that place, I mean, based upon what Royce talked about, it puts us in a place of grace. It puts us in a place of gratitude. It opens our heart. And in doing so, it opens our being to potentiality. And as crazy as this is going to sound, the other day I was a little sidewoods and the weather was kind of cool, and I decided to take a walk by the lake. And I literally spent 45 minutes just replaying him saying, thank you, and listening to it. And I will share with you, I came back and was in such this peaceful, beautiful, heart wide open, I'm going to be okay today. I'm going to be okay for the next whatever. And you know what? It's now 2 weeks later and I'm still okay. Doesn't mean I'm not planning for a potentially different future, just in case. But I'm also planning for that big breakthrough too. So I hope that helps some of you. And maybe, I was going to say, sorry, I just had a last thought. And maybe in your meetings, in those little huddles, one of the things you may want to add is, how do you say thank you to each other? What is one thing that you appreciate about the people that are here? What is one thing that you're thankful for? And start that way so that you all drop into your heart and you have, in essence, a moment of grace together that you can share.
And what I love about what you just said is that we have an opportunity. Again, I want to be mindful that I'm saying this from the perspective of someone who has resources and all that. But we have an opportunity, those of us who can and who choose to change the way our culture operates, whether it's our cultures at home, whether it's our cultures in organizations, whether it's a culture in this community, in your neighborhood. We have an opportunity, and one way to do that is to do what Christine just described, or whatever form you need to have it be because it biologically, neurologically calms your amygdala down.
Mhm.
The minute you calm that down, you can access creativity, you can access wisdom, you can access your emotional and social intelligence, which you're going to need when you come, either go back to work or go along and adjust to whatever's coming. And it actually gives you physically, and I would argue spiritually and in other ways, the ability to bring a totally different, I don't want to say aura because I don't want to look like I'm levitating.
It's an energetic though. It's an energetic within your system.
Yeah. And then you bring that to the community. You bring that in your actions. You bring that in your thoughts. If you have the ability to do that and you have the resources to do that, that for me is where faith lies. I have the faith that if I do this, good will come of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me is the central piece of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Woo, that's good. Okay, there were some questions, and Christine McMahon, we'll go to you first. About there's been a lot of questions about finances and at work.
Oh, she froze up again. We got to get you to stop doing that, Corey Joe.
It's the finance question, huh?
Yeah, I think. You just Are you there?
See me?
You keep freezing up.
You.
Yeah,
I'm having feelings of abandonment right now. Okay.
Am I back?
You
Yeah,
are.
you are. You are totally.
Proud and strong.
It's like
So what
weird.
about finances?
Let me see. Okay. There were questions about finances, mostly at work, and the pressure to kind of sell and focus on the bottom line right now at this time. And Christine, I know sales is your thing, so I'm just wondering what insights and thoughts that you have around how people can be using this time.
Christine, did you tell your story? You did. Did you tell your story? I know you did to me about sales.
I don't know which story, but I will share a couple of things with you. So I'm actually conducting a sales assessment right now for a company. There's 24 people. I've had 50 plus hours of conversation with people over the last couple of weeks. So it's been big. And what was a bit stunning to me is that, this is a really powerful time to be making connections with companies and those key decision makers. And in a time of crisis, you always want to protect your base. And what I mean by protecting your base is you want to be very close to those companies who represent, they may be 20% of your business, but they generate 80% of your revenue. That's protecting your base. You want to know what's happening in their business and what are their pressures and what are they seeing and what do they anticipate, recognizing you're just gathering information. It is not the predictive. It's just the gathering of information, and that information needs to be funneled to the executive committee so that they can also have their pulse on the market and be making informed and smart decisions. At the same time, too many sales managers that I've had conversations with are having their sales teams, just because they're sitting at home, cleaning up administrative stuff, like working on CRM and getting everything right. Well, that's all well and good, but your competition is making calls.
Right.
Your competition has a marketing program that's connecting to your customers. So I think that they're at a competitive disadvantage and needed to share with them. I said, you want your sales team to be out there, building the potential, building the desire, building the opportunity to make connections. And, as the millennials are in very powerful positions today, I would tell you that the need to be face-to-face in making a sale is not what it was even 5 years ago. They don't really need to see you. They're more educated. They want information that helps them make a smart decision, and they want the transaction to get done, and they want it done right, and they want your assurance that you're going to be there. So if you're focusing as a company, you know, if we look at that whole sales acquisition and retention process, 40% of it is the sales process. That should be happening now. 30% of it is the product. So what are you going to be able to produce so that your salespeople can sell it? And you need to make sure that communication is real time, because if they overpromise and you underdeliver, that's just another stress point for companies. So while you may have a product line, let's just say for assumption, you have 5 key products. 2 of them you can produce safely and on time. The other 3 kind of bumpy. Guess what? You need to have your sales force focused on those 2 product lines and making a heavy push on that canvas, with the other 3 saying, you know, here's the timeline of what we anticipate, but we're experiencing supply chain demands right now and constraints. Here's the magic. If you want high retention with your current customers, the last part of it is that 30% is the after sales service. So you as a salesperson set an expectation of what I can expect from you as a company. Are you going to be there after I make the decision? When I have an issue, are you going to take my call? I had one of the salespeople share with me, they have multiple divisions. He actually referred, so get this, they're in the same company, different divisions. He gave his counterpart salesperson a referral, hot referral, ready to buy now referral. That referral called him and emailed him multiple times. 56 days later, he hadn't heard from him. Wow. And he bought from a competitor. I can't make this up. So, you know, today, you know, sales is about 3 things: focus, competency, and momentum. Where are you focusing your sales team? How are they empowered and competent to do what needs to be done? And are you giving them an opportunity to gain a lot of momentum so that they get in that genius brain? And man, the competition cannot build a wedge between them. Why? Because they're invincible.
Absolutely. And balancing that with just the mindfulness, everything that we talked about, I think that's a really good framework, work, and wisdom to combine everything. I mean, certainly people aren't going to have the same, some people might not be able to sell the same way or the same energy, or they have other concerns, and other folks might be more available or more, you know, open and mentally in a space to do exactly what you're talking about. And I think that's sort of what we've been talking about this whole phone call, is that none of us know exactly what the future is going to bring or how people around us are going to respond to the stimuli that is just coming at us like a, you know, fire hose.
Nobody is closer to your customers than your sales team. So why not have them out there, and why not be feeding that CRM, and why not be debriefing them so that everybody in the company gets a sense of, okay, what's going on out there?
Right? That's the connection you were talking to earlier.
Yeah.
Yep.
One last comment from me. I'm sensing in your voice inflection, Corey Jo, that you're about ready to pull the plug on us.
Yeah, and you know what? We got 50 people still hanging with us.
Well,
that's actually a lot. We're a half hour over time, so
they may have to buy me a glass of wine before, depending on what time we get done. One of the questions I asked, going back to the mindfulness business, one of the questions. Wait, I have to.
That's so awesome.
Elaine says, "I so appreciate your time. I will buy you a bottle. Can you give me a call this evening, because I'm out."
You're awesome.
Yeah. What I
the chat is great.
What?
The chat is great. It's cracking.
What I recommend, and I tell my students and clients, mindfulness can alter your amygdala, your neurological process, to allow you to do all these magnificent things that we're talking about. One thing to remember is that if you write notes and you plaster them on the refrigerator, or use visuals, put something on your desktop, constantly rewiring the plasticity of your brain. Here's the question I posed to myself, and it took me a long time to get so that I just naturally did it. That helps to ground me and pushes me sometimes to the point where I think, I wish I could just unlearn this because I want to be a pain in the butt. I don't want to be all mindful and self-aware. I can get away with a lot more if I am. And this is the question that I always recommend. The question is, what is motivating what you are about to say or do? And if the answer to the question is fear, if the answer to the question is, I really, really love this person, or I really, really care about this, whatever the answer, know that by the mere act of answering the question, posing it and answering it, you have gotten out of your amygdala, potentially to enough of a degree where you can honestly say to yourself, oh man, I'm just really heading down that old rabbit hole again. And I need to pull myself, because if I start thinking about, I have to own the outcome of this, I'm not going to want to own it. That's one question I highly recommend that you put on your refrigerator. I had considered a tattoo, but I'm short and fortunately I didn't have to go that way. The other thing I want to say, just for the record, because I wanted to say this, you have no idea how fun this is, Corey, Joe, and Christine. Honest to God, my biggest beef, and I hope somebody writes a book, and my biggest beef for decades has been this notion of soft skills, that we don't need work on our soft skills. Horse caca. Part of what we're talking about here are what would usually be defined as soft skills. If you want to do your employees or your fellow, you have the resources to do this yourself, get in touch with that aspect of yourself that soft skills adheres to. And by that, I mean mindfulness, communications of all different kinds, being able to be emotionally and socially intelligent. Don't buy the notion that that's not worthy of your time. It's not only worthy of your time, but the people who say it's soft skills, as far as I'm concerned, they're afraid of it. They're afraid because that requires a level of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Guess what? So does leadership. And on that note, because I know you're going to pull the plug.
Well, Corey, before you do, I want to offer a resource for team members or for the people listening here today. If you don't know about HeartMath, HeartMath, you can just go online. HeartMath has done amazing work, amazing research on connecting to the heart and building what's called coherence within a team. And when you build coherence, you're in a place actually of great resourcefulness.
Is it this?
It is the HeartMath. Yeah, the HeartMath experience, yes. And they have tremendous amount of resources on there. They have tremendous articles on there. If you have a team that is really sideways, it may be beneficial to practice just breathing and getting what's called connected to and in a place of coherence and alignment. It is amazing the outcomes that have happened with students who have had high stress, high panic around taking tests, who have been bullied. When they understand the HeartMath techniques, they excel in terms of tests. They excel in terms of finding their voice and having communications with people who are picking on them. But HeartMath is really a beautiful way to bring out the best that exists within all of us, individually and as a team. So I just want to throw that out to you as another resource that may be able to help some of you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, she's reading about it right now.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's been around a while too, Christine.
They actually, when they first kicked off, they had folks who were here in Milwaukee. I love that. I guess we're done, huh? Oh, there you go.
Did you do that?
That's gonna be my next tattoo.
Oh, baby.
Are you
that's-
serious?
And I'm gonna say thank you, Christine's.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
I'm gonna
Corey.
say, I'm gonna have another one on the other arm that says, "What is motivating what I'm about to say?"
Oh, I want the answer to that when it happens.
I hate to say that we have to go, but what's motivating it is that I have an appointment and I have to.
Oh, well, Christina, you want to keep going? No, never mind.
Well, I just want to say to everybody, thank you all so much for
Right.
being present today, for caring enough about yourself and your teams and the people that you love and your work with to share your time with us. Namaste to you all. Namaste to you, Corey Joe, for your leadership and your insight and your brilliant ideas of saying, I'm going to bring the both of you together. I've been threatening to introduce you for years. And we thought, yeah, we're going to jump on a call at noon and we're going to like get ahead of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Corey Joe.
Thank you, Christine.
Love yourself, girl. Love
Yeah.
yourself. Good.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. I'll talk to you again. I'll be needing some coaching soon, I'm sure. I'll be bugging you. I'm so glad you guys finally met, and I'm glad the fuelers that hadn't seen you before now have been introduced to both of you. So you guys got to remember, Fuel is doing webinars every Tuesday and Thursday from 2 to 3. Our Thursday webinar is about essential workers, and we'll have an update from our Milwaukee's health professionals and officials on sort of where we stand and if we're flattening the curve and that. So look out for the details of that on the Fuel website, but you know it's going to be at 2 o'clock every Tuesday and Thursday. All right.
All rock.
All right.
Right. Get back to work, you guys.
Oh, hell no, I'm retired.
Bye.